Welcome to Season 3 of A Cut Above the Rest. We're really excited to share with you more information about baleage production and high quality hay production, and to make sure that you're getting the best out of your forage investment. High moisture baleage is where we're going in and baling that crop at a higher moisture, and then we're wrapping it to allow it to ferment. The wrapping actually accomplishes an exclusion of oxygen, and it's very important that we exclude the oxygen there so that we enable the bacteria that are just naturally there to ferment that material and take that sugar content and the carbohydrates and turn it into acids. That's what makes it stable and safe. When considering how much plastic to put on, you need to consider the type of wrapper that you're using. So we have two different types primarily. We have an individual wrapped bale and an inline wrapped bale. For an inline wrapped bale, what you really need to do is put on about 6 or 8 layers, and if possible, put on double that amount of plastic where those bales join up against one another. That's always the weak point and a place where we might get more stretching of that plastic. For an individually wrapped bale, we're probably going to shoot for around 6. That should be our target. And it's important that we put on plenty of plastic because a certain amount of oxygen can get through that plastic. So we need to put on multiple layers to exclude that oxygen. Individually wrapped bales can be transported relatively easily with a bale squeeze. It's important though that we not handle them too roughly. They do need to be handled with care, especially with that squeeze and especially at speed. If we mishandle the bales, one of the things that can happen is when we introduce oxygen, we can introduce and allow for more fungal development. Essentially what that can do is cause heating to occur. Certainly is going to cause some spoilage and deterioration of that bale and that forage. The key consideration over all of that is to make sure that you handle those bales gently. Don't introduce holes or introduce oxygen into that plastic. Storage of wrapped baleage is very, very important to consider because you have a lot of logistics, both from getting the bales out of the field, but then ultimately where they're going to be wrapped, and then ultimately where they're going to be fed as well. So it's really important that we think through where is a good location going to be. We want to wrap those bales wherever we're going to store those bales. And we want to store those bales as close as we possibly can to where we're going to feed those bales. So a site selection process really needs to be given some thought. It's also important that we don't necessarily put that run of bales right up against a fence line. We want to keep the weeds and the material away from these bales because those weeds will grow and produce seed. That brings a lot of mice and rodents. So we want to make sure that we're avoiding that to minimize the damage that's done to those bales. Fermentation takes at least 4 to 6 weeks. So we really want it to go through that fermentation process so it's good and stable. We can hold that baleage, typically like to say up to 9 to 12 months. There's some research to suggest we can maybe go longer than that if we have plenty of plastic to exclude oxygen. But typically we want to feed all of that within the year that we've made it. Baleage typically is going to be a higher quality product. Now that's not to say that if you have low quality and you wrap it up that it's going to be any better. But baleage in general is going to be that higher quality that is justified to be fed to a higher tier of livestock. Whether that be beef cows that we're trying to build condition in to breed back, or calves that we're trying to put weight on, or maybe this is going into a dairy ration. So we need to make sure that it's going to really match the quality that particular livestock class is really going to need. So it's really important to start with a test to make sure we know what kind of quality we're dealing with, but then also utilize it in a ration. One of the most cost-effective strategies is to use baleage as a supplement. that maybe we're feeding every other day in a beef cattle diet. Maybe it's something that we're mixing in as a substitute in a dairy ration. And that product needs to go to the livestock that's going to have the most cost-effective response to that. So some quick take-homes on this. We want to make sure that we are putting on ample amounts of plastic to allow for complete oxygen exclusion. We want to handle and store those bales in a way that minimizes the risk of poking a hole in that plastic or doing any kind of damage to that plastic. And then thirdly, we want to make sure that we're sampling that forage and then feeding that forage to the appropriate animal classes in the most cost-effective way. Well, we hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and we hope that you'll stick around and join us for the next episode with Dr. Jennifer Tucker. We also hope that you would submit your samples to the Southeast Hay Contest presented by Massey Ferguson to prove your hay is the best, and to join us when we announce the results in the third week of October at the Sunbelt Ag Expo. And we hope that you'll check out more information on our website at sehaycontest.com. That's www.sehaycontest.com.